President Donald Trump's approval rating on the economy has dropped to the lowest point of his presidential career. That's the finding of a CNBC All-America Economic Survey. It seems that the economic optimism seen post the re-election of Donald Trump has now disappeared, with more Americans now worried about the state of the economy and the trajectory of the stock markets. Out of 1,000 Americans surveyed, 55% of the respondents have expressed their disapproval with Trump's handling of the economy, and 43% have shown their approval. This is the first time that such a level of disapproval for Trump's handling of the economy has emerged in any CNBC poll. 49% of those surveyed believe that the economy will get worse over the next year. 40% of those who are negative about Trump's economic policy say they are hurting the economy now. Tariffs are the overall reason for public discontent. Americans disapprove of across-the-board tariffs by a 49 to 35 margin, and majority believe they are bad for American workers, inflation, and the overall economy. Democrats give tariffs a thumb down by an 83-point margin and independents by 26 points. Republicans approve of the tariffs by a 59-point spread, 20 points below their 79% net approval of the president. The president's worst numbers come for his handling of inflation, with only 58% of Republicans voting in favor. 57% of the public believe that US will soon be or is currently in a recession, up from just 40% in March 2024. The public also disapproves of the president's handling of federal government spending by a 45% to 51% margin, and foreign policy by a 42% to 53% margin. Americans have also turned more negative on the stock market than they've been in the last 2 years. 53% believe that it's a bad time to invest, which is 38% saying it's a good time to invest. Trump's best numbers come on immigration, where his handling of things is approved by a 53% to 41% margin. And deportation of illegal immigrants is approved 52% to 45%. Large majorities of Americans see Canada, Mexico, EU and Japan as more of an economic opportunity for the US rather than an economic threat. On China, however, the public sees it as a threat by a 44% to 35% margin, substantially worse than CNBC's survey in 2019. However, these approval ratings do not appear to be translating into significant potential gains for Democrats. Asked about congressional preference, 48% of the public support Democratic control and 46% support Republican control, which is almost the same as CNBC's March 2022 survey.
Let's turn to the economy and tariffs. Results from CNBC's latest All-America Economic Survey show Americans disapprove of the across-the-board tariffs by a wide margin. Our Steve Leisman has the exclusive results. Hey again, Steve.
Hey, Carl. Yeah, a plurality of Americans think across-the-board tariffs are a bad idea, with most believing they will hurt jobs and be worse for inflation. And the public is having a hard time believing there's a payoff at the end of all this. The CNBC All-America Economic Survey finding 49% of respondents say across-the-board tariffs are a bad idea. And look, 45% feel really strongly about it. Just 35% think they're a good idea and they don't feel quite as strongly about it. 15% are unsure. Who's the most negative on tariffs? Well, take a look. Democrats, they hate them. African Americans, young people hate tariffs, and urban-dwelling Americans. Republicans are positive on it, but not as positive as they are on the president overall. Rural Americans, people above 100,000, maybe that's because there's a shift in the tax burden, and men age 50 plus. Majorities think tariffs hurt importers, the cost of everyday goods, the overall economy, as well as individual workers. But, so you can see here, negative on that, negative on inflation, negative on the overall economy, negative overall on the worker, but just this one thing here for companies producing goods in the U.S., that's by a 51 to 37% margin you can see there. Now, what about other countries? The Americans do not embrace this idea from the president about his concern about our allies. They're positive on Mexico being an economic opportunity, positive on Japan, positive on Canada, positive on the EU, positive on the UK. Only China, but by a 9-point margin, not tremendously. So they're really not seeing these countries overwhelmingly as economic threats, much more as opportunities. Guys, why is this data important for investors? Well, what we see is that the public doesn't like tariffs. The markets don't like tariffs. So we have this question, what is constraining and guiding the president here when it comes to this critical issue of tariffs and the outlook for the economy?
Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noah's in the gospel, bride, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. Lord's will to be edifying, going into these Trump tariffs and layoffs, and the economy is pretty much failing people. Economy is collapsing, which, this is what Trump basically stated. This is what Schwab said 2 years ago, which allegedly he stepped down to put some other James Bond demon in there, some other villain, look like out of a 007 movie. Dr. No is some shit, man. The dude with the messed up eye with the cat. I think he was played by Donald Pleasance and the Sean Connery's version of James Bond. But anyway, you will own nothing and be happy about it. And if you look at it, this is a systematic collapse. All right. It's a very systematic collapse. And we're seeing the price of rents, mortgages are going up, and people are getting caught up into these inflated housing rates when they was promised to have a stable rate during the time of the pandemic. But you didn't read the fine print. And now you got a lot of people that's stuck with mortgages that they can't afford. I know a friend of mine is in this same predicament. They coerced them to buy a house, and they didn't understand, the ins and outs of the housing market and how things was going to shift, which the time of the pandemic was nothing more but a wealth grab, a transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich to make the poor poorer and the rich richer. And a lot of people went up and bought these houses. A lot of women went up and bought houses because, they wanted to be so-called boss babes, not having any type of guidance on the ins and outs of buying a house. They didn't understand escrow. They didn't understand mortgage fluctuate. They didn't understand none of that shit, man. They didn't understand what a bear market was. They didn't understand the bubble of the housing market. They didn't understand none of that shit. So now, they was promised these houses for $800-900 a month as far as a mortgage is concerned to pay off the house over 30 years or 15 years, which is ridiculous. And before you know it, mortgages then went up across the board. So people were walking away from their homes, because it's one thing to buy the house, but then you can't afford the damn property tax. That's just, it's hand over fist debt, slavery, man. And people are waking up to this shit now, and they're pissed off at Trump. All right. Now, what I was doing, I was looking through a couple of videos here about the cost of living. You will own nothing, and the poor, it says you will own nothing and be poor, because it's all about integrating people into this controllable grid, the smart city shit. Like right now they're building up a bunch of look like concentration camps, but they look like like luxury livings, and they're building them up all over the place, especially here in Kansas City. And they're small communities, and they're putting like hotels in the midst of them, and particular shopping venues and all this other shit, because they want to torture you people and they want to contain you. Okay, they don't want you to be able to own your own house, but yet they will disguise it as luxury living and it's condo lifestyle, but you can't afford it, man. All right, I'm talking about luxury living starting at $2,500 a month in a city like this. You got to be out your rabbit ass mind, man. But nonetheless, this is a systematic collapse. I was checking the gold, and gold has been at its highest than it's ever been. And that's how you know that we're getting ready to see a collapse any day now. Okay, we saw this back in 2008, but not to this magnitude. Okay, with 2008, the housing market, the subprime lending, those particular markets pretty much collapsed with subprime lending, which basically is predatory. We saw the housing market collapse, and a plethora of other shit that went down. But now this is looking like this is getting ready to be a worldwide financial meltdown, and they're getting ready to do away with the dollar to come in with the digital system, and that's what it's about. So they're tanking these markets, and they're manipulating the markets so they can crash the dollar, so they can go ahead and bring in a digital system. But first they're gonna let you people kind of have your way out here. So it's gonna get real grimy here in a minute. All right. So anyway, I was looking here. I was watching Apostle Tahar's video, and it says here, this is from Monex. It says current life prices. Gold is currently at $3,280 an ounce. Okay, I believe it went down $60 bucks. And then silver is currently at $33.19 an ounce, which last time I checked silver, it was between roughly 24 to 26 bucks an ounce, you know, which silver is considered poor man's gold. And silver and gold is real money. Okay, when you go into Genesis, it tells you that Abraham was rich with silver and gold and cattle, okay, which is real money. And with Melchizedek, he gave him a tenth of everything that he owned, you know. But anyway, I'm looking here. It says Monex spot prices. Gold is at $3,200 an ounce, $3,280 an ounce, while platinum is at $982 an ounce. What is it called? Spot palladium is at $957 an ounce. So they're raising the prices on precious metals because shit is getting ready to collapse. All right. Now it says a 10-ounce gold bullion bar, like a gold key, like a gold block, $33,062 an ounce, man. Okay. Silver. It says 1,000 ounces of silver runs you at $33,459. A 10-ounce palladium bar runs about $9,714, and a 10-ounce platinum bar runs. Damn, you see, it just went up. See that? See how it just changed? See, you see how he's playing with the markets, man. $9,928 an ounce. I mean, for 10 ounces. Okay, well that's 10-ounce bar. So that's like them little, I think those little square. I'm gonna look it up, a 10-ounce bar. Now, a gold kilo bullion bar, that's the ones that look like blocks, the ones that they allegedly have in Fort Knox. Those are considered, I believe, those are kilo bars, which starts at $107,193.95. And gold is the real money, man. All right, that's why they're raising this shit up, because they don't want people to have access to it. Because with silver and gold, I mean, you could be able to do some things with it, but in a time of a collapse, it's not going to really matter. Because, I mean, who the hell is going to be trading in silver and gold when it's going to go back to bartering, you know? So it's not looking too good, man, for this place. But let me do this real quick. 10-ounce gold bars. Yeah, so that's what I thought. They look like little dog tag. They look like the little, yeah, Bullion Max. They're ready to go belong to us any goddamn way. Yep. Now let's look up a kilo of gold. Kilo of gold, which is the little bars. Which I've always wanted to hold. Damn, I've always wanted to hold one of these things, man. You know, they're pretty heavy, and this is the reason why the bankers came up with the banking system, because, you know, people wouldn't go walk around with this. People, and Salakia for the noise, man. They're working on the balcony across the hall. But people not gonna just walk around with kilos of gold in their purses, man, because for one thing, it's too heavy. Second of all, somebody will rob you. So somebody had the clever idea of putting it in a bank and you exchanging it for what they call a certificate, and you show the certificate and for the amount of gold or silver you got, and then bam, you know, say if I wanted 20 ounces of gold, you'll have a certificate that show how much gold you got in the bank or the reserve. You give them the certificate, in exchange they give you your money. But see, you people are so stupid, you let the bankers rob you of your money, of your wealth, and they've left you with these Federal Reserve notes, which is debt notes, which is the reason why you're in this predicament in the first goddamn place. You bunch of damn moron. You American people are stupid. That's why I don't feel bad for this place falling the way it's falling, because, I mean, you people are fucking stupid any goddamn way. You know what I'm saying? You walking around with Federal Reserve notes. They have no value to it. And then when you try to withdraw 10 bands out of the bank, they got to investigate where the fucking money come from. It's, you know, it's crazy. But anyway, this is the book of Zephaniah 1, because it ain't going to matter, all right? But it says here, and it should come to pass in that day, says Yahweh, that there should be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills, man. And the hills goes into these governments, man. All right? And it says here, how ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, and all that bear silver are cut off. So these merchants, these markets, these things are getting ready to collapse, because they're getting ready to bring in a digital system when everything is controlled on the one particular dime. That make any sense? Like you got the IUIC now changing their stance on the mark of the beast. And we've already said that. Apostles been saying that. They say, wait till this thing becomes obvious. This crackhead Nate is going to act like he's been teaching it the whole time, man. And anybody that can't see that Nate is a demon, then you know what? You deserve to be under that demon. You know, them niggas are not right. Scriptures say, meddle not with them that's given to change, and which proves that their cronies don't know the scriptures, because Nate is doing everything and then some, and he's violating the scriptures. Just the fact he's saying this is like his third or fourth breakdown on the mark of the beast. Like, dude, which is it? Is it this or is it that? You know? But anyway, it says here, how ye inhabitants of Mektesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, and all they that bear silver are cut off. And this is why you're seeing the people in the mourning state of mind, because people have lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in the stock market. Which the stock market is like literally, that's like gambling, bro. You know, you put a couple of dollars in, the market's hit. Like when Trump did the 90-day tariffs, and he froze it, the market shot back up, and a lot of people allegedly was cashing out. You know, they made good money out of the market. You know, like if I made 20 or 30 G's out of the market, hey, I would have been cool. I would have took that bread out and been done with it. And I never would have invested in that shit again, because like I said, they control the markets. And the people that hit big in the stock market are usually the insiders, man. And they're telling them when they're going to crash the market, you know. But anyway, it says you will own nothing and be poor. The cost of living crisis. You're mad about returning to work, but jobs are disappearing. Jobs are disappearing, man. You know, it's getting bad. People are getting ready to lose it because they can't even afford to live anymore. And, you know, we've warned the people, okay, the men of the Lord. We've told people that this was going to be the deal. All right. America is getting ready to be destroyed. And it says here, 13, and their goods should become a booty, which is spoiled, and their houses a desolation. And they shall also build houses, but not inhabit them. And they shall plant vineyards, but not drink the wine thereof. Right, man? Because like all now, this new construction they're building up in this country, especially here in KC, because, you know, the Chiefs brought home like 3 Super Bowls. So they got a lot of money from that, you know. So they're trying to build up this place. They're building streetcars. They built a women's soccer stadium, you know, and they're building up another luxury living complex right to another luxury living complex. And it's just like, where y'all gonna get the money to do this shit? You know, and they're pricing out the average people that live here, you know, because the average person that live in Kansas City, they can't afford to pay fucking $3,000 a month for rent. You know, especially for some shit that was going roughly $1,000 just a couple of years ago. They can't, people, the wages are stagnant, you know. A 5% raise on a job, that ain't a lot of money, man. All right, especially if you're looking at it paycheck to paycheck. Okay, that raise is over an increment period of time, but it's not enough. You know, and it says here, the day is a day of wrath, and a day of trouble and distress, and a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of the clouds and thick darkness going into the destruction. It says a day of the trumpet and the alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, and they should walk like blind men, because they have sinned against Yahweh, and their blood should be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung. Yeah, because it's going to be chaos out here. Okay, and on top of that, the missiles. And it says, neither their silver nor their gold should be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. Okay, so the silver and gold is not going to, people ain't going to give a damn about that shit, man. Okay, and they always show you in the movies, the apocalyptic movies and shit, like when all hell breaks loose, you always got some genius that decides to rob a bank on the night of a collapse, and then you see all the money still around, you know, because they can't spend it on anything. Now, cash may do you good for the first 2 weeks, because, you know, you may still have some people operating under the table. But as a collective, eventually, when the merchants and shit shut down, nobody going to be looking for no goddamn Federal Reserve notes. Bro, what you going to do with that? Well, I give you $10,000 in Federal Reserve note for a loaf of bread. It's not going to work, because people is not going to need the money to buy goods anymore. Okay, so you're going to have to trade things of value. Even silver and gold won't do too much good, you know, unless you're dealing like with some actual merchants. But somebody may say, well, look, man, I have this blanket or this knitted sweater for the cold, and I have this weapon, and I have some whiskey in exchange for your daughter, or your you know, your daughter has, you know, that, or whatever, or a piece of bread, or I give you this knitted sweater for a piece of bread. And that's what these fucking preppers are doing. Well, I give you these shoes and these boots and these wool socks for some whiskey type shit. So if you got alcohol in that day, hey, you may be in good shape, because that shit gonna be like liquid gold. People gonna be literally, boy, alcohol is gonna be the savior in that day, man. That's why alcohol gonna shoot up, you know? But neither their silver nor gold should be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. But the whole land should be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he should even make a speedy riddance of them, of all that dwell in the land. And he's going to do that by the missiles. You see? So here, Ezekiel 7. And I'm going to start at verses. Let's start at verses 17. It says, all hands should be feeble, and all knees should be weak as water. And they shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame should be upon all faces, and baldness upon all heads. And they should cast their silver in the streets, and their gold should be removed, and their silver and gold should not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of Yahweh. And they should not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. So silver and gold is not going to do anything. Like you got these preppers talking about, well, yeah, make sure you get your money out the banks, which is, it's probably not a bad idea to get your money out the bank. I'm not against it. But even then, he's saying, well, make sure y'all stockpile your money. Go back into the Weimar Republic, man. Look up what happened during the time of the Weimar Republic. People was literally taking money and they was burning them for warmth, because the money was the value at that time. And it's looking like a similar scenario. So you have $100,000 in the Federal Reserve notes. You can use it as toilet paper. What you gonna do with it? Nah, you can't go buy a car with that shit. You can't go buy no bread with that. The hell, the fucking grocery stores are gonna be raided, man. So yeah, you people are through. The job market is getting worse. People are uncertain. They don't know how they're gonna live, and people are getting desperate. This is why it's good to really stay away from people, or really, minimize your contact with people, because people, they're losing it. Motherfuckers crashing out. They got demons on them, and they don't know what to do with themselves, man. All right, so this is the book of Ecclesiastes 12. And I'm going to start at verses 1. It says, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, when the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In a day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and among strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few. But those that look out of the windows be darkened. Yeah, there's no more optimist here. People are not optimistic about the way of the world anymore, man. They're like, what? I don't see this really being it. What happened to the American dream, which they sold you on a lie. All right, the elites, they already in hiding, because they see this thing getting ready to pop. And it says here, and the doors should be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he that should rise up at the voice of the bird, and the daughters of music should be brought low. So it's gonna come a time that these jobs, shit just gonna cease, and we're seeing it now. Okay, they're cutting back. Hell, they're financing the police department, but even then, they gonna start getting laid off, man. The fire departments, there ain't gonna be no 911 in that day. And it says, and when they should be afraid of that which is high, and fear should be in the way, and the almond tree should flourish, and the grasshopper should be a burden, and desire should fail, because men go to his lone homes, and mourners go about the streets. Yeah. So the desire should fail. You're seeing people, they don't want to deal with it anymore. People are just like, you know what? I'm tired. I don't have it in me no more. I don't want to work. Fuck this. I want to take what I want, man. And people are taking shit, So anyway, man, yep, this is a major reset. Like the brother said, World Economic Order. This is the Great Reset plan. Project 2025, man. This article that I had, that I was actually doing a little part series on. I think I did like 2 videos, maybe 3, which I want to restart it back up when the spirit hits me to do it. But it says how 2025, how America will collapse. And this article was written in 2010, and it looks like it's pretty much on point. Whoever wrote this article, they must know something, because clearly they seen the writing on the wall then. And this was literally after the first collapse that we had in 2008. So, with that, all praises and glory and honor is due to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Lord's will, you are edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.